What happens when a ruthless alpha king who breaks steel doors is forced into court-ordered therapy? Meet Nikolai Volkov. He runs his empire and his pack with an iron fist. But to save his company, he has to submit to anger management. Enter Dr. Quinn Pelligrino, a woman with a tweed blazer, a murderous pet rabbit, and enough courage to tell a werewolf to take his shoes off. He thinks this is just a business problem. She thinks she's treating a stubborn CEO. But when he smashes her desk and traps her against the wall, the diagnosis changes instantly from anger issues to obsession. Get ready for a clash of wills that ends with a terrifying elevator ride you will never forget. Welcome back to Linas Romantasy collection, the home of your next dark romance obsession. To my loyal pack members, it's great to have you back, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. Before we let the alpha loose, please smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chapter. I want to know where my pack is hiding today. Drop a comment below and tell me what country or city you are listening from right now. Now, let's start the session.
Chapter 1. The King's Cage. The conference room at Apex Dynamics smelled like filtered air, stale coffee, and betrayal. I sat at the head of the mahogany table, my hands gripping the leather armrests of my chair. The wood creaked, a high-pitched whine that warned it was about to splinter under my grip. I forced my fingers to relax, one by one. I could feel the familiar burn of the Volkov temper rising in my chest, a hot, clawing sensation that scratched at the back of my throat, demanding release. "Please, Mr. Volkov," Zachary Swan said smoothly, clicking a button on a remote. "Watch the screen." Zachary was my beta. He was also the chief operating officer of my company. He wore a navy suit that was tailored to perfection, and his smile was as sharp and sterile as a scalpel. I had trusted him to run the logistics of the pack, while I handled the heavy lifting, the expansion, the power. Now, he was hunting me. I watched the screen. It was security footage from the lobby 3 days ago. On the 4K display, a man in a courier uniform bumped into me. He spilled a latte on my jacket. In the video, I didn't just brush it off. I grabbed the man by the lapels and slammed him into the marble wall. I roared, a sound that distorted the microphone so badly it screeched. The reinforced glass doors of the lobby cracked from the sheer force of my aura. The board of directors gasped. They were humans. They didn't understand that the courier had been an assassin, carrying a silver-laced dagger in his boot. They didn't smell the metallic tang of poison on him. They just saw a CEO losing his mind over a coffee stain. "This is the 4th incident this month," Zachary said, his voice dripping with faux concern. He looked at the shareholders, his expression pained. "The shareholders are terrified, Nikolai. They think you are unstable." "I was protecting the asset," I growled. My voice came out lower than intended, vibrating with the animalistic rumble I was trying to suppress. My slight accent, a relic of the old country that I usually hid well, always became thicker when I was angry. "You broke the receptionist's desk in half," Zachary pointed out, clicking to the next slide. It showed a split oak desk and a terrified intern. "It was in my way." "Nikolai," Zachary sighed, leaning forward on the table. "The board has reached a decision. You are a liability. Your temper is a risk to the stock price. We cannot have a CEO who looks like he's going to murder the janitorial staff." I looked around the table, 12 men and women, all avoiding my eyes. They smelled of fear, sweat, elevated heart rates, the sour scent of adrenaline. They were terrified of me. Good, they should be. I was the Alpha King. I could tear this steel and glass building down with my bare hands if I chose to. "So?" I challenged, leaning back. "You want me to resign? I own 51% of the shares. You cannot oust me." "We can declare you mentally unfit," Zachary smiled. It was a predatory smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "We have the footage. We have the witness statements. We can force a vote of no confidence and strip you of your executive powers. Unless..." He slid a thick manila file across the polished table. I stared at it. "Unless what?" "Unless you seek professional help," Zachary said. "We have prepared a court order. You will attend intensive anger management therapy. You will complete 20 sessions. You will receive a stamp of approval from a licensed psychologist, stating that you are no longer a danger to society. I laughed. It was a dark, humorless sound that made the woman to my left flinch. Therapy? You want the Alpha King to talk about his feelings? I want the CEO to stop destroying office furniture, Zachary corrected sharply. It is this, or you step down. Effective immediately. I looked at Zachary. I smelled the deceit on him. It smelled like sulfur and jealousy. He wanted me to refuse. He knew my pride. He expected me to flip the table, shift into my wolf form right here, and storm out, proving him right. Then he would take the crown. He would take the company. I took a deep breath, forcing the wolf inside me to heal. Not today, Zachary. I picked up the file. Court order number 4492. Fine, I said, my voice cold as ice. I will go to your doctor. I will sit on their couch. And when I am cleared, Zachary, we will have a very long conversation about loyalty. Zachary's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Excellent, he said, recovering quickly. Your first appointment is in 1 hour. Her name is Dr. Pelligrino.
Chapter 2. The Murder Bunny. Dash, drop it! Drop the internet! That is not food! I dove under the vintage velvet sofa, scrambling across the hardwood floor of my apartment. My target was a 10-pound ball of white fluff, currently murdering my Wi-Fi cable. Dash, my Angora rabbit, looked me dead in the eye. He chomped down. Snap. Great, I groaned, rolling onto my back and staring at the ceiling. Just great. Now how am I supposed to upload my patient notes? By carrier pigeon? Dash thumped his back foot aggressively. Thump. It was a sound like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. It was his way of saying, "You were 5 minutes late with my kale, Quinn. This is your punishment. Suffer." You are a menace to society, I told him, crawling out and dusting lint off my knees. You're lucky you're cute. If you weren't so fluffy, you'd be stew. Dash wiggled his nose dismissively and hopped away to terrorize a slipper. I checked my watch. 8:15 a.m. I was running late. I grabbed my bag, scooped up a handful of organic kale from the fridge, and threw it into Dash's travel carrier. He attacked the greens with the ferocity of an apex predator. I had to bring him to the office today because the landlord was spraying for bugs, and Dash would absolutely bite the exterminator. I ran out the door, lugging the carrier down 3 flights of stairs, and burst out onto the bustling New York street. There she was, my pride and joy, my vintage cherry-red Peugeot 205 Cabriolet. Most people my age drove sensible sedans or leased Teslas. Not me. I liked things with character. I liked things that were a little broken. That was probably why I became a psychologist. "Good morning, Bridget!" I patted the hood affectionately. Yes, I named my car. I slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed like a chain smoker, and then roared to life with a smoky protest. "That's my girl," I whispered. I tried to put the roof down. It was a rare, sunny day in the city, but the mechanism groaned and stuck halfway, leaving it looking like a broken accordion. "Okay, half roof it is," I sighed, putting it back up. I drove through the city traffic, the wind finding its way through the cracks and whipping my messy curls around my face. I pushed my glasses up my nose for the 10th time. I loved this city, but sometimes it felt like it was trying to swallow me whole. I was 28, successful, and owned my own practice, Pelligrino Mines. I was doing great. I didn't need a boyfriend. I didn't need drama. I had my car, my murderous rabbit, and my roommate Jenna, who was currently in her green smoothie cleanse phase, which meant our fridge smelled like wet grass and despair. I pulled up to my office building, a charming brownstone nestled between a Starbucks and a yoga studio. I parked Bridget, carefully so no one would ding her paint. Getting parts for a vintage Peugeot was a nightmare, and ran inside, lugging Dash's carrier. My receptionist, Sadie, was already there, hiding behind her computer screen. She looked pale. "Dr. Pelligrino," she whispered, her eyes wide. "He's here." "Who?" I asked, setting Dash's carrier down behind the front desk. "My 9 a.m. isn't until—" "The court order," Sadie hissed. "The Apex Dynamics guy. He's in the waiting room. He's scary, Quinn. He's pacing. I think he growled at the water cooler, like, actually growled. I rolled my eyes. Corporate types. They were all the same. Entitled, stressed, and convinced the world revolved around their quarterly earnings. They usually calmed down once they realized I wasn't going to buy into their tantrums. "He's just a man in a suit, Sadie," I said, grabbing my clipboard. "Send him in. And keep an eye on Dash. If he starts thumping, give him a blueberry." Sadie gulped, looking from the carrier to the waiting room door. "I think I'm more scared of the rabbit." "Valid," I muttered. I straightened my blazer, pushed my glasses up one last time, and opened the door to my office. "Mr. Volkov," I called out. The man who stood up in the waiting room blocked out the sun. Chapter 3. Shoes Off. I had seen attractive men before. I lived in New York, I had eyes. But this man was ridiculous. He was at least 6'5". He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire student loan debt, tailored to fit shoulders that were impossibly broad. His hair was dark, swept back in a way that looked severe, and his jaw looked like it could cut glass. He had the kind of face you saw on statues of warlords, harsh, beautiful, and unforgiving. But it was his energy that hit me first. It was a physical wave of heat. He radiated irritation like a furnace. He turned to look at me. His eyes were dark, intense, and currently narrowed in a glare that would probably make his employees weep. "Dr. Pelligrino," he said. His voice was a deep rumble, wrapped in a faint, crisp Eastern European accent that made my insides do a traitorous little flip. "Oh no," I thought. "He has the voice." I had a weakness for accents. It was my secret shame. But I pushed that thought down and put on my professional mask. "You are late," he stated. I checked the clock on the wall. "I am 2 minutes late, Mr. Volkov, and you are early, which means you have been stewing in my waiting room for 15 minutes. That's a lot of time to build up resentment." I stepped aside, gesturing into my office. "Please, come in." He walked past me. He smelled like expensive sandalwood, crisp winter air, and pine? It was an woodsy, intoxicating scent that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He walked into my cozy office, filled with soft rugs, bookshelves, and lavender diffusers, and looked around with absolute disdain. He looked like a tiger forced into a petting zoo. "Sit anywhere," I said, closing the door. He headed for the leather armchair, his heavy footsteps thudding against the floorboards. "But first," I said, pointing a pen at him, "shoes." He froze halfway to the chair. He turned slowly, his brow furrowing. "Excuse me?" "Shoes," I pointed to the woven mat by the door. "I have authentic Turkish rugs, Mr. Volkov, and judging by the mud on your Italian loafers, you walked here from the parking lot across the grass. Shoes off." He stared at me. He blinked. It was clearly the first time in his life anyone had given him an order. His jaw clenched tight. "I am the CEO of Apex Dynamics," he stated, his accent getting thicker, rolling over the consonants. "I do not take my shoes off in business meetings." "This isn't a business meeting," I said cheerfully, walking behind my desk and sitting down. "This is therapy, and in my office, we leave the dirt and the ego at the door. Shoes off." For a second, I thought he was going to explode. The veins in his neck popped. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I watched him closely. This was the anger the court order had mentioned. He looked like he wanted to flip my desk. Then, to my surprise, he exhaled sharply through his nose. The tension didn't leave his body, but he controlled it. He bent down and aggressively untied his shoes. He kicked them off with unnecessary force and stormed over to the chair in his socks. "Happy?" he grunted, sitting down and crossing his massive arms. "Delighted," I smiled. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the corner of the room. We both looked. I had forgotten. In my rush, I hadn't latched the carrier properly. Dash, my white Angora rabbit, hopped out from behind the bookshelf. Mr. Volkov stiffened. "Is that a rat?" It's a rabbit, I corrected. Dash, go back to your... Dash didn't listen. He saw a stranger. He saw a threat. He hopped over to Mr. Volkov's stockinged feet. He sniffed the expensive wool sock. Then, with zero hesitation, Dash bit him. Ow! Mr. Volkov jerked his leg back, looking at the fluff ball in horror. It bit me! The rat bit me! He's territorial, I said, trying not to laugh as I rushed over to scoop Dash up. He smells fear. I do not have fear, Volkov roared, standing up. I am the... He stopped himself. He glared at the rabbit in my arms. I am not afraid of a bunny. Dash growled, a low, guttural sound that rabbits shouldn't be able to make. Mr. Volkov looked at the rabbit. Then he looked at me. For the first time, the anger in his eyes dimmed, replaced by pure confusion. Your rabbit growled at me, he whispered. He does that, I sighed, putting Dash back in his carrier and locking it firmly. So, Mr. Volkov, you have anger issues and my rabbit hates you. This is going to be a fun 20 weeks. Shall we begin?
Chapter 4. The Family Business. I wiggled my toe, the one the white demon had bitten. It throbbed beneath the cashmere wool of my sock. I was the Alpha King. I had fought rogue wolves in the frozen forests of Siberia. I had negotiated hostile takeovers worth billions. And yet, here I was, sitting in a velvet armchair that smelled like lavender, shoeless, defeated by a 10-pound ball of fluff named Dash. Shall we begin? Dr. Pelligrino asked again, her pen poised over her clipboard. She looked unimpressed. That was the only word for it. Most humans trembled when I entered a room. They sensed the predator beneath the skin. But this tiny woman with the messy curls and the glasses that were too big for her face just looked at me like I was a spreadsheet that wouldn't balance. My anger, I started, my voice rumbling in the small room. I rolled the R in anger, the accent slipping out. It is genetic. Genetic, she repeated, writing it down. Your father was angry? My father was a warlord, I said before I could stop myself. In the business sense. We deal in high-stakes acquisitions. It is a family business. We are very passionate people. Passionate, she echoed dryly. Is that what you call throwing a courier through a drywall partition? I stiffened. He was a threat. He was delivering a latte, Mr. Volkov. He moved too fast, I growled, gripping the armrests. The leather creaked. In my world, sudden movements are dangerous. I reacted. It is instinct. Dr. Pelligrino stopped writing. She pushed her glasses up her nose, a nervous tic or perhaps just a habit. She looked me dead in the eye. Her eyes were hazel, flecked with green. They were intelligent, dangerous. It sounds like hypervigilance, she said softly. You live in a state of constant high alert. You expect attack, so you attack first. I stared at her. She wasn't wrong. Being alpha meant constant threats, challenges for the crown, assassins like the courier. I could never relax. It is necessary, I said stiffly, to maintain control. Control of what? She asked. The company or yourself? The question hit me like a silver bullet. I looked away, focusing on the Turkish rug beneath my stockinged feet. The scent of her. Something sweet like honey and old paper was filling my lungs, making the wolf inside me pace restlessly. It wanted to go to her. It wanted to rub against her legs and claim that scent. Mine, the wolf whispered. I shoved the thought down. I was a monster. She was a human doctor who drove a car named Bridget. We were not compatible. I am the king, the CEO, I corrected quickly. Everything is my responsibility. If I am weak, the company falls. Zachary, Mr. Swan, he waits for me to fall. Dr. Pelligrino leaned back. So you aren't angry, Nikolai. You're exhausted. I blinked. No one used my first name. It sounded strange on her tongue. Soft. And, she added, pointing her pen at me, you have a massive superiority complex masking a deep-seated fear of abandonment. You think if you aren't the biggest, scariest thing in the room, people will leave you or replace you. Silence stretched between us. The air conditioner hummed. Dash the rabbit thumped his foot in his carrier. I do not have a complex, I muttered, crossing my arms defensively. You made a receptionist cry because she didn't have your preferred sparkling water, she countered. That's a complex, and we're going to fix it. She smiled. It wasn't a professional smile. It was a genuine, amused smile. Same time next week, she asked? And please, try not to destroy any furniture on your way out.
Chapter 5. Impulse Control. Rocco, for the last time, you cannot eat the tires of the car that cuts you off. Rocco, the Rock, Santini stared at me from the therapy couch. He was wearing a velour tracksuit that was a violent shade of purple and enough gold chains to anchor a battleship. He looked like a mob enforcer, but technically, he listed his occupation as Import-Export Logistics Consultant. It was a radial tire, Doc, Rocco argued, waving his hands. I went for the sidewall. It's the softest part, but I still needed to crunch it. The guy didn't signal. Disrespect. The disrespect makes the itch happen under my skin. We talked about the itch, I said, making a note. Patient exhibits oral fixation linked to aggression. Possible pica? Or just weird? When you feel the itch, you squeeze the stress ball. You do not bite the Goodyear. Stress ball is for weaklings, Rocco scoffed. But for you, Doc? I try. You're a good lady. Smart. You remind me of my Nona, but hotter. Respectfully. I sighed. Thank you, Rocco. Respectfully, stop hitting on your therapist. A knock came at the door. Sadie poked her head in, looking terrified again. Dr. Pelligrino? Your 10 a.m. is here. He's early. I checked the time. 9:55 a.m. Nikolai Volkov. The man was learning. Send him in. I'm just finishing up, I said. Rocco sat up, adjusting his chains. Who's the 10 a.m.? Another nut job? The door opened. Nikolai Volkov stepped in. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Nikolai was wearing a navy suit today, looking impeccably groomed and terrifyingly large. He filled the doorway. He looked at me, his expression softening slightly. Then he looked at Rocco. The change was instant. Nikolai's posture shifted. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted, and a low, vibrating sound emanated from his chest. It sounded like a growl. Rocco stood up slowly. The goofy mobster demeanor vanished. He looked dangerous. He sniffed the air, his nose twitching. Volkov, Rocco spat. Santini, Nikolai replied. His voice was ice cold. They stared at each other. The air between them crackled with invisible electricity. It felt like two rival warlords meeting on a battlefield, not two patients in a brownstone hallway. You're seeing the doc? Rocco asked, his eyes narrowing. She's my doc. Get your own. I go where I please. Nikolai stepped forward. And you are in my way. Boys! I shouted, slamming my clipboard onto the desk. Both men snapped their heads toward me. This is a place of healing, not a locker room, I scolded, standing up. I was 5'4". They were both over 6'3". I didn't care. Rocco, your session is over. Take a stress ball on your way out. Nikolai, take your shoes off. Now. Rocco looked at Nikolai. He grinned, a nasty, sharp-toothed grin. She makes the Alpha King take his shoes off? Oh, I like her. She's got you on a leash, Volkov. Nikolai's eyes flashed a literal shade of molten silver. I blinked. Must be a trick of the light. Get out, Santini, Nikolai snarled. Rocco laughed, grabbed a stress ball from the jar, and winked at me. See you next week, Doc. Keep this one muzzled. Rocco left. Nikolai stood there, vibrating with rage. He looked at the door, then at me. You treat him? Nikolai asked, his tone bordering on accusation. He is garbage. He is a scavenger. He is a patient, I said firmly, just like you. Now, shoes. Or do I need to get the rabbit? Nikolai looked at the carrier in the corner. He paled slightly. He bent down and started untying his laces.
Chapter 6. The Convertible. 3 weeks. I had been attending therapy for 3 weeks. I hated it. I hated talking about my feelings. I hated the lavender smell. I hated that I was beginning to look forward to seeing her. Dr. Quinn Pelligrino was vexing. She was impertinent. She ordered me around. She had diagnosed me with 3 different complexes and told me my emotional intelligence was stunted. And yet, when I wasn't in her office, I found myself thinking about her. I thought about the way she chewed on the end of her pen. I thought about the way her nose crinkled when she scolded me. I smelled her scent, honey and ink, on my clothes hours after I left. My wolf was no help. Mate, it would whine in my head. Bring her a deer, bring her a shiny rock. Bite anyone who looks at her. No, I told the wolf. She is human. She is fragile. And Zachary is watching. I walked out of the brownstone building after our 4th session. It was raining, a cold, miserable city drizzle that turned the Manhattan skyline gray. I signaled for my driver, Boris, but then I paused. In the parking lot, Quinn was standing next to her ridiculous car, the vintage red Peugeot. She was struggling with the roof. It was stuck halfway up, leaving the interior exposed to the rain. She was soaking wet, her curls plastered to her face, wrestling with the canvas top. "Work, you stubborn piece of French engineering," she yelled, kicking the tire. I sighed. I told Boris to wait. I walked across the wet pavement. I didn't have an umbrella. The rain soaked my suit jacket instantly, but I didn't feel the cold. Alphas ran hot. "Need assistance?" I asked, stepping up behind her. Quinn jumped, spinning around. She looked like a drowned rat. A very cute, very angry drowned rat. "Nikolai," she wiped rain from her glasses. "I mean, Mr. Volkov. No, I'm fine. Bridget is just being temperamental. She doesn't like humidity." "Bridget is a car," I pointed out. "Don't let her hear you say that." I looked at the roof. The mechanism was jammed. The metal strut was twisted, caught on the latch. It required brute force, but applied precisely. "Step aside," I said. "I can do it," she argued, shivering violently. "I just need a wrench and maybe a priest." "Quinn," I said. My voice dropped an octave, resonating with a power I shouldn't have used. "Step aside." It was an alpha command. I didn't mean to release it, but the urge to protect her overrode my control. She blinked, her eyes going slightly unfocused, the hazel dulling for a fraction of a second. She stepped back immediately, her mouth snapping shut. I grabbed the metal frame of the roof. I could smell the rust and the old grease. I engaged my muscles, careful not to rip the car in half. I applied pressure. Screech! Crunch! The twisted metal groaned and snapped back into alignment. I pulled the roof forward and slammed the latch down. I pressed my thumb against the locking mechanism, forcing the steel hook to bend around the catch so it wouldn't open again. "There," I said, wiping black grease from my hands onto my wet trousers. "Bridget is secure." I turned to look at her. She was staring at me. Her clothes were clinging to her body. My wolf growled low in my chest, wanting to wrap her in my dry jacket, wanting to lick the rain off her skin to warm her. "Thank you," she whispered. She looked at my ruined suit. "You're soaking wet, and you got grease on your $3,000 pants." "They are just pants," I shrugged. "You are cold." For a moment, in the gray rain, we just stared at each other. The air between us felt heavy, charged with something that terrified me. "You should get inside," I said roughly, stepping back before I did something stupid, like kiss her. "Drive safe, Dr. Pelligrino." I turned and walked away, feeling her eyes burning a hole in my back. "Mate," my wolf howled mournfully. "Mate." Chapter 7. The Grease Stain and the Bent Metal. The rain hammered against the glass walls of the Apex Dynamics skyscraper. Inside the private elevator, I stood perfectly still. I refused to look at my reflection in the mirrored doors. I knew what I would see. My hair, usually styled with military precision, was plastered to my forehead. My bespoke Italian suit was soaked darker than a moonless night. But the water wasn't the problem. I looked down at my right hand. There was a smear of black engine grease across my knuckles. The elevator dinged softly. The doors slid open to the penthouse floor. Zachary Swan was waiting in the lobby area, scrolling through a tablet. The beta looked up, a smug grin already forming on his face. "You're late for the—" Zachary stopped. His eyes widened. He lowered the tablet. He stared at me. "Please tell me you didn't kill anyone," Zachary said slowly. "Cleaning up blood in this weather is a logistical nightmare." "No one is dead," I growled. My voice was deeper than usual. The wolf was right at the surface, pacing, agitated. I walked past Zachary, my wet shoes squeaking on the marble floor. The indignity was unbearable. "You smell like old books." Zachary sniffed the air, frowning. "And honey? Since when do you eat honey?" I froze. I could smell it too, her scent. It was clinging to my wet clothes. It was stuck to my skin where the rain had touched me. "I do not eat honey," I said, my accent thickening. "I fixed a car." Zachary blinked. "You? Fixed a car? You fire interns for having lint on their blazers." "It was an emergency," I snapped. I stormed toward my office door. "Cancel my meetings, all of them. I need a shower. And burn this suit." "Burn it?" "Incinerate it, Zachary. I never want to see it again." I slammed the heavy oak door shut, locking the world out. I leaned my back against the wood and exhaled a shaky breath. I looked at my hand again. I had used the command. "Step aside," and she had obeyed. If the council found out I was using alpha voice on a human, on a doctor, they wouldn't just fine me. They would investigate her. And if they investigated Quinn Pelligrino, they would see what I saw.
40 minutes later, I pulled Bridget into my driveway. The little red Peugeot had survived the drive. The roof had stayed firmly shut, keeping the interior bone dry. I turned off the engine, but I didn't get out immediately. I sat in the quiet dark, gripping the steering wheel. My heart was still doing a weird, fluttery thing. I looked up at the roof latch. Usually, I had to wrestle with it, jiggling the handle. I reached up and touched it. The metal lever was bent. It wasn't just closed. The steel hook looked like it had been molded by a hydraulic press. It was warped, forced into the locking mechanism with an amount of strength that didn't make sense for a human hand. Not even a big one. "He's a CEO," I whispered to the empty car. "He pushes papers. He doesn't bend steel." I thought about his face in the rain, the water dripping off his sharp jawline, and that voice. "Step aside." A shiver went down my spine. When he said that, my brain had just stopped. It was like someone pulled the plug on my executive function. I had moved before I even decided to move. Hypnosis? I wondered aloud. Is he trying some kind of neuro-linguistic programming on me? I shook my head, grabbing my bag. "You're overthinking it, Quinn. He's just an intense guy. A very large, very strong, very angry, intense guy on steroids." I got out of the car. Inside my apartment, Dash was waiting by his food bowl. He thumped his back foot when he saw me. "I know, I'm late," I sighed. I kicked off my heels and walked over to the cage. I reached in to pet him, but Dash sniffed my hand and immediately recoiled. He hopped to the back corner of his hutch, his nose twitching rapidly, his ears flat against his head. "What?" I asked, offended. "I showered this morning." Dash stared at me with beady, judgmental eyes. He wouldn't come near me. I smelled my wrist. Rain, hints of leather, and something else. Something sharp and woodsy, like a forest after a storm. Like expensive sandalwood cologne. It was Nikolai. His scent was on my hand from when he'd brushed past me. "Great," I groaned. "Even my rabbit is afraid of him." Chapter 8. The Gold Hubcap and the Green Monster. POV. Quinn Pelligrino. 3 days had passed since the rain incident. 3 days of me staring at the bent metal hook on my car roof and wondering if I needed to report my patient to the WWE. I sat at my reception desk, trying to organize patient files. Sadie was out sick with the flu, which meant I had to man the front desk myself. The bell above the door jingled. I looked up, expecting Nikolai. It was his scheduled time. But it wasn't the dark, brooding Russian who walked in. It was a wall of purple velour. Rocco, the Rock, Santini, strutted into the waiting room. He was wearing a bright purple tracksuit with white stripes, and his gold chains were clinking together like wind chimes. "Dr. Q!" Rocco boomed, spreading his arms wide. You look radiant, like a fresh plate of gabagool. I sighed, closing my folder. Rocco, your appointment isn't until Thursday, and please don't compare me to deli meat. I was in the neighborhood, Rocco said, leaning his hip against the high reception desk. He winked. Handling business, you know how it is. Waste management never sleeps. He reached behind his back. And I brought you a gift, an apology, for the, tire situation last week. Rocco pulled out a massive, shiny object. It was a hubcap, but not just any hubcap. It had been spray-painted gold, and someone had drilled a hole in the top and strung it on a thick gold chain like a giant necklace. It's custom, Rocco said proudly. 24-karat spray paint. I stared at it. You made me a hubcap necklace? To replace the one I damaged, Rocco corrected himself quickly. Wear it in good health. Before I could explain that I would absolutely not be wearing a hubcap, the door opened again. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Nikolai Volkov walked in. He looked impeccable. His suit was navy blue today, sharp as a knife. His hair was perfectly styled. There was no trace of the wet, desperate man from the parking lot, but his eyes were stormy. He stopped dead when he saw Rocco leaning on the desk. He looked at the purple tracksuit. He looked at the gold hubcap. Then he looked at me. Is this part of the therapy? Nikolai asked, his voice ice cold. Group sessions with clowns? Rocco stood up straight, puffing out his chest. He was big, but Nikolai was taller. Watch your mouth, Volkov. I'm bringing gifts. What did you bring? Besides a bad attitude and a cheap haircut. Nikolai took a slow step forward. The air suddenly felt very heavy. A low, vibrating sound came from Nikolai's chest. It sounded like a growl, but it was low enough to pass for a rumble of disapproval. I brought a check, Nikolai said, pulling a sleek envelope from his jacket. To pay for the professional services. Because I am an adult, not an overgrown toddler playing dress-up. Rocco's face turned red. You want to go, rich boy? Right here? Gentlemen! I slammed my hand on the desk. Both heads snapped toward me. Sit down, I ordered. Both of you. Rocco grumbled, but sat in one of the waiting chairs. He crossed his arms, the nylon of his suit making a loud swish-swish sound. Nikolai didn't move. He stared at Rocco with a look of pure, unadulterated loathing. Mr. Volkov, I said, keeping my voice steady. My office. Now. Nikolai's gaze flicked to me. For a second, I felt that weird sensation again, that pull like gravity shifting. I remembered the parking lot. Step aside. I stiffened, bracing myself for another hypnosis trick, but Nikolai just nodded stiffly. After you, doctor. I walked to my office door and held it open. Nikolai swept past me. He smelled of rain and pine, just like before. As he passed Rocco, Nikolai paused. He didn't look at the other man. He just whispered, low enough that I barely caught it. If you chew on her car again, I will turn you into a rug. Rocco bared his teeth, a flash of white in the purple room. It looked almost feral. I slammed the office door shut, cutting off the testosterone fest.
Chapter 9. The truth is a dangerous thing. The air in the small office felt suddenly thin. It was as if all the oxygen had been sucked out by Quinn's presence. I sat in the chair, my socks digging into the Turkish rug. I had taken my shoes off without being asked. It was becoming a habit. So, Quinn opened her notebook, deciding to address the elephant in the room immediately. Let's talk about last week, in the rain. My head snapped up. There is nothing to talk about. I fixed the mechanical issue. I left. You fixed a mechanical issue by bending solid steel with your bare hand, Quinn said, watching me closely. And you told me to step aside, in a voice that made my brain go blank. I went very still. I gripped the armrests of the chair. I have a commanding presence, I said flatly. I am a CEO. It felt like hypnosis, she challenged. It was authority, I lied. You were panicked. I took charge. It is a technique. A technique? Quinn raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call it? Because I looked it up. There's no psychological technique called scary voice that makes people zombies. I looked away. I looked at the window. I do not want to talk about the car. Fine, Quinn said. She leaned forward. Then let's talk about why you look like you wanted to kiss me right before you ran away. I choked on air. My head whipped back around, my eyes wide with panic. The tips of my ears burned. You are mistaken, I said. My voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. Am I? Quinn raised an eyebrow. I have a PhD in human behavior, Nikolai. I know what desire looks like. Pupils dilated, rapid breathing, and you ran away into the rain to avoid it. I looked down at my bare feet. This was humiliating. The king of the Eastern Pack being dissected by a woman who smelled like honey and stubbornness. It was a lapse in judgment, I forced the words out. Adrenaline, physical exertion from fixing the car. It confuses the brain. So, you're saying you fixed a car roof and suddenly felt the urge to make out with your therapist? I am saying, I growled, looking up at her sharply, that you are a very frustrating woman. And in high-stress situations, frustration and attraction can look similar. It was a half-truth, a dangerous one. Quinn leaned back, tapping her pen against her lip. The movement drew my eyes to her mouth. It was pink, soft. I clenched my jaw until my teeth hurt. Attraction, she repeated the word, testing it. So, you admit you find me attractive? Do not twist my words, doctor. I'm not twisting, I'm clarifying. It's healthy to admit these things. She wrote something in her notebook. Transference is common. Patients often develop feelings for their therapists. I laughed. It was a dark, harsh sound. I am not a patient with a crush, Quinn. I am a man who appreciates symmetry. You have a symmetrical face, that is all. Symmetry, she deadpanned. How romantic. I am not romantic. I am efficient. Right, efficient. I stood up abruptly. The room was too small. The scent of her was too strong. My wolf was pacing, scratching at the back of my mind. Tell her. Claim her. I am exactly what you see, I said, grabbing my shoes. I didn't even bother sitting down to put them on. I shoved my feet into them, ignoring the discomfort. A man with too much money and a temper problem. Isn't that your diagnosis? I didn't wait for her to answer. I walked to the door. Do not accept gifts from Rocco Santini, I warned her, my voice low. The man has fleas. Then I walked out, leaving her alone with her questions.
Chapter 10. The War of Gifts. 2 days later, I was starting to think my life had turned into a bizarre reality TV show. First, there was the hubcap. The gold-painted monstrosity from Rocco was currently sitting on top of my filing cabinet because I felt too guilty to throw it away, but too embarrassed to display it. But today was different. I was in the middle of a session when Sadie knocked on the door. "Dr. Pelligrino?" Sadie whispered, poking her head in. She looked pale. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there are men outside." "Men?" I frowned. "What kind of men?" "Men in jumpsuits, like a racing pit crew. They're surrounding your car." I excused myself and ran to the window. Down in the parking lot, 3 black vans were parked around Bridget. 6 men in matching gray coveralls were swarming my car. They weren't stealing it. They were working on it. One was buffing the hood. Another was under the chassis. 2 were installing what looked like a brand-new, high-tech convertible roof mechanism. "What on earth?" I muttered. I grabbed my keys and marched outside. The air smelled of fresh wax and expensive tire rubber. As I approached, a man with a clipboard stepped forward. He was huge, bald, and looked like he ate bricks for breakfast. "Dr. Pelligrino?" he asked politely. "Yes, get away from my car. Who are you?" "Vitali, Apex Dynamics Special Projects Division," he said in a thick accent that sounded suspiciously like Nikolai's. "Mr. Volkov sent us." "Mr. Volkov?" My jaw dropped. "Why?" "He said the structural integrity of your roof was—" Vitali checked his clipboard. "Suboptimal and embarrassing." We have replaced the manual latch with a hydraulic titanium locking system. We also reinforced the chassis, installed a high-pressure release on the trunk for rapid cargo deployment, and replaced your tires with bulletproof run flats. Bulletproof? I squeaked. Why do I need bulletproof tires? Vitaly shrugged. Mr. Volkov said, and I quote, "Because the Italian idiot bites things." I stared at him. Nikolai had sent a military-grade pit crew to upgrade my beat-up convertible because he was jealous of Rocco biting my tire. Is there a bill? I asked weakly. Paid in full, Vitaly said. He handed me a small velvet box. He also asked me to give you this. He said it is better than a hubcap. I opened the box. It wasn't jewelry, it was a key fob, but it was made of heavy, polished platinum, the only white metal safe for his kind to touch, engraved with a small, intricate wolf's head. It looked ancient and incredibly expensive. It is a remote starter, Vitaly explained, and a panic button. If you press the wolf's eye, GPS coordinates are sent directly to Mr. Volkov's personal security team. I looked at the silver wolf. It was beautiful. It was possessive. It was crazy. He's insane, I whispered, running my thumb over the engraving. He is thorough, Vitaly corrected. He signaled to his team. We are finished. Do not drive over 120 miles per hour for the first 20 minutes. The engine needs to settle. This car can't go over 60, I shouted after them. But they were already packing up, moving with military precision. I looked at Bridget. She gleamed in the sunlight. She looked safer, stronger. I looked back at the office window. The gold hubcap was inside, collecting dust. But this was practical, protective. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text message from an unknown number. Symmetry is important. Now the car matches the driver. NV. I bit my lip to stop a smile. I was in so much trouble.
Chapter 11. The Beta's Suspicion. She is a liability, Nikolai. Zachary Swan stood in front of my desk, his arms crossed. The city lights of New York glittered behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but the mood inside the office was darker than the night sky. I didn't look up from the report I was reading. She is a doctor, Zachary. I am court-ordered to see her. If I stop, the council revokes my business license. Is that what you want? You know that's not what I mean, Zachary hissed. He tossed a folder onto my desk. It slid across the mahogany surface and hit my hand. I opened it. Photos. Dozens of them. Quinn walking to her car. Quinn buying coffee. Quinn laughing at something her receptionist said. And the last one, Quinn standing in the parking lot today, holding the silver key fob I had sent her, looking at it with a soft expression. A low growl started in my chest before I could stop it. The sound vibrated through the heavy desk. You are having her followed? I asked. My voice was dangerously quiet. I am doing my job as your second, Zachary said, though he took a small step back. You sent a tactical team to fix a civilian's car. You ordered military-grade titanium parts for a 1990 Peugeot, Nikolai. A Peugeot! The pack is talking. They say you are distracted. I am securing my investment, I said, closing the folder slowly. If she dies in a traffic accident due to faulty French engineering, I have to find a new therapist. I hate interviewing new people. It's more than that, Zachary challenged. I smell it on you every time you come back from that office. Honey, ink, and arousal. I stood up. The chair flew back and hit the wall with a crash. Zachary flinched. He exposed his neck instinctively, a beta submission response. Careful, Zachary, I warned. You are valuable to me, but you are not irreplaceable. I am trying to protect you, he argued, though his voice shook. The Lunar Gala is in 2 weeks. The council will be there. The elders will be there. They are expecting you to announce a mate soon. If they smell a human on you, if they think you are breaking the masquerade, they will do nothing, I snapped. They will kill her, Zachary said bluntly, to clean up your mess. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. He was right. If the council thought Quinn was a distraction or, worse, a liability to the Alpha King, they wouldn't hesitate. They would arrange an accident, A fire, a robbery gone wrong. I looked at the photo of Quinn again. She was smiling at the silver wolf. I couldn't hide her. Hiding her made it look like a shameful secret. Secrets were investigated. I needed to do the opposite. I needed to put her in plain sight. I needed to show them that she was under my protection, but that she was nothing more than a consultant. Or perhaps I needed to play a different game. The gala, I said thoughtfully. Zachary nodded, looking relieved. Yes, you need a date. A she-wolf from a good bloodline. Maybe Natasha from the northern pack? She is single and has excellent teeth. No, I said. I picked up the photo of Quinn. I will not bring a stranger. Then who? I smirked, though there was no humor in it. I will bring the doctor. Zachary's eyes bulged. Are you mad? You want to bring a human to the Lunar Gala? It's a room full of apex predators. She will be eaten alive. Not if she is with me, I said. It is the perfect cover. I will tell the council she is my wellness consultant, that I'm taking my rehabilitation seriously. It shows compliance. It shows insanity. It is decided, I said, using the alpha tone that allowed no argument. Send an invitation to Dr. Pelligrino. Make sure it is printed on the expensive cardstock. Zachary stared at me for a long moment, searching for a sign that I was joking. He didn't find one. As you wish, Alpha, he muttered. He grabbed the folder and turned to leave. But as he walked out, I saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't just concern anymore, it was calculation. Zachary was planning something, and now I had to watch my back, and Quinn's.
Chapter 12. The Courier and the Claws. The courier didn't look like a delivery man. He looked like a Secret Service agent who had lost his earpiece. He stood in the waiting room of Pelligrino Mines, wearing a black suit that cost more than my rent. He held a matte black envelope with both hands, presenting it like it was a declaration of war. Dr. Pelligrino, he said. It wasn't a question. Correspondence from Mr. Volkov. I looked at the envelope. It was heavy, made of thick, textured cardstock. Did he send me another car part? Because I really don't have room for a backup engine in my apartment. The courier didn't smile. Sign here, please. I scribbled my signature on his digital pad. He bowed, actually bowed, and left without another word. Sadie, who had returned from the flu, stared at the door. Dr. P, are you dating a mob boss? Because that guy definitely knows how to dissolve a body. He's a CEO, Sadie, just a very intense one. I retreated to my office and sat at my desk. I fingered the silver wolf key fob in my pocket for reassurance before opening the envelope. Inside was a card embossed with platinum foil. The Lunar Gala, an evening of heritage and hierarchy. You are cordially summoned to attend as the guest of Alpha Nikolai Volkov. Role, Executive Wellness Consultant. Date, Saturday, October 14th. Dress code, formal. Compliance is mandatory. Summoned? I read aloud. Compliance is mandatory? I grabbed my phone and dialed Nikolai. He answered on the first ring. You received the package. His deep voice rumbled. There was no hello. Nikolai, what is this? I asked, waving the card at the empty room. I'm not a wellness consultant. I'm your therapist. And summoned? Who talks like that? It is a corporate gathering, Nikolai said smoothly. Investors, board members, the old guard. They are stressful people. I require your professional presence to ensure I do not lose my temper and defenestrate someone. Defenestrate? Throw someone out a window? It is a high risk, he admitted, sounding deadly serious. You help me manage my impulses, Quinn. This event is the ultimate trigger test. Consider it a field session. I will pay your hourly rate for the entire evening, plus overtime. I did the math in my head. That was a lot of money. Enough to fix the leaky plumbing in my bathroom and buy Dash Premium hay for a year. And the wellness consultant title? I asked. A necessary cover. It explains why you are by my side all night without implying personal entanglement. It protects your professional reputation. He was lying. I could hear it in the pause before he spoke. But it was a logical lie. Fine, I sighed. I'll go, but I'm wearing what I want. No compliance mandatory on my wardrobe. We will see, he said darkly. A stylist will be at your apartment on Friday at 6 p.m. Do not be late for your own living room. Nikolai, I can dress myself. Not for this crowd, Quinn. These people, they judge on appearance. Armor is required. Armor? It's a gala, not a joust. With these people, Doctor, there is no difference. He hung up before I could argue. I looked at the invitation again. The silver foil seemed to glint in the light, cold and sharp. Executive Wellness Consultant. Why did I get the feeling I was walking into a lion's den with a pork chop tied around my neck?
Chapter 13. The Red Dress. I stood in the center of Quinn's living room, feeling entirely too large for the space. Her apartment was cozy. It smelled of vanilla candles, old books, and her. It was a comforting scent, but it made my wolf pace restlessly. He wanted to rub against the furniture. He wanted to claim this space. I kept my hands clasped behind my back to stop myself from touching anything. This is ridiculous, Quinn said, stepping out of her bedroom. She was wearing a pastel blue chiffon dress. It was pretty. It was soft. No, I said immediately. What do you mean, no? Quinn huffed. It's elegant. It makes you look like a prey animal, I stated. Blue is a color of submission, softness. If you walk into the gala wearing that, the she-wolves will tear you apart before the appetizers are served. She-wolves? Quinn froze. You mean aggressive female executives? Yes, I covered quickly. The board members' wives, they are territorial. I turned to the stylist I had brought with me. Show her the red one. Nikolai, I don't wear red, Quinn argued. It's too loud. You are attending with me, I said, stepping into her personal space. I lowered my voice. You need to be loud. You need to be seen. If you blend into the background, you become a target. I need you to be a warning. A warning? She looked up at me, her hazel eyes wide. A warning that you are under my protection, I whispered. Go, try the red. She glared at me, but she took the garment bag from the stylist and went back into the bedroom. I waited. My heart was beating an agitated rhythm against my ribs. Bringing her was a risk, a massive one. But leaving her here unprotected while Zachary plotted, that was not an option. The bedroom door opened. The air left my lungs. The dress was silk, the color of fresh arterial blood. It was a deep, dangerous crimson. It had long sleeves and a high neck, modest by human standards, but the back was completely open, plunging down to the curve of her spine. It hugged her frame like a second skin. She looked regal. She looked dangerous. She looked like a queen. Well? Quinn asked, shifting uncomfortably. I feel like a lighthouse. I walked toward her. The scent of her honey skin mixed with the silk was intoxicating. I stopped inches from her. Turn around, I commanded. She hesitated, then turned. I looked at the exposed skin of her back. Her spine was a delicate line of vertebrae. It was the most vulnerable part of her. My wolf whined. He wanted to place a mark right there, at the base of her neck. A claim that would keep every other male at the gala 10 feet away. I reached out, my fingers hovering just above her skin. I could feel her body heat. Nikolai, she whispered. She sounded breathless. I pulled my hand back, clenching it into a fist. It is adequate, I said, my voice strained. It commands respect. You will wear this. She turned back around, her cheeks flushed. You're paying for it. And the shoes. And the therapy I'm going to need after this field session. Agreed, I said. Now change. We have strategy to discuss. I turned away, walking to the window to stare out at the street. I needed to focus. I needed to be the alpha king. But all I could think about was how that red silk would feel sliding off her skin.
Chapter 14. The Snake in the Garden. The day before the gala, I decided to go into the office early to prep some notes. The sun wasn't even fully up yet, and the parking lot was empty. Except for one person. Zachary Swan was leaning against the hood of my car, my newly upgraded tank-treaded Peugeot. He was wearing a beige trench coat and checking his watch. When he saw me, he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. Pelligrino," he said smoothly. "Early riser. I admire that." "Mr. Swan," I said, stopping 10 feet away. I gripped my keys. My thumb hovered over the silver wolf eye of the panic button Nikolai had given me. "Can I help you?" "I certainly hope so," Zachary said, pushing off the car. He walked toward me. He moved with a strange fluidity, like water flowing over rocks. "I wanted to give you some friendly advice. About tomorrow night." "I have all the advice I need from Mr. Volkov," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Nikolai is an optimist," Zachary chuckled. "He thinks he can change the rules of nature. He thinks he can bring a lamb to a wolf pack and expect it not to be eaten." "I'm not a lamb, Mr. Swan, and I'm told the wolves are just board members." Zachary stopped. His expression hardened. "Is that what he told you? Board members?" He shook his head. "Nikolai is a king, Doctor, and kings have enemies. By standing next to him, you are making yourself a pawn in a game you don't understand." He took another step. "Do you know why he really fixed your car? Do you know why he follows you? It's not affection, it's possession. To him, you are just a shiny new toy. And when the council sees you tomorrow, they will break you just to see him bleed." A chill went down my spine. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I am a pragmatist," Zachary whispered. "Don't go to the gala. Call in sick. Stay home. Lock your doors. If you go, you will see things that will ruin your little human life forever." "My little human life?" I repeated, offended now. "Last warning, Doctor." Zachary leaned in, sniffing the air near my hair. "You smell like him. It's disgusting." I stepped back, my thumb finding the silver wolf eye for security and the remote start button for distraction. I pressed both. Click! Suddenly, my car, Bridget, roared to life behind Zachary. The new engine revved aggressively, the headlights flashed blindingly bright, and the horn blared a sound that was less like a beep and more like a foghorn. Zachary jumped, startled. "My car seems to dislike you," I said, holding up the fob. "And I think security is on the way." Zachary sneered, adjusting his coat. "Enjoy the party, Quinn. Don't say I didn't warn you." He turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner of the building, just as a black Apex security SUV screeched into the parking lot. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My hands were shaking. He was right about one thing. I didn't understand the game. But if Zachary Swan wanted me to stay home, then going to the gala was exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to let a guy in a beige trench coat tell me where I could and couldn't go. I looked at Bridget, purring like a mechanical beast. "Good girl," I whispered to the car. "Tomorrow, we wear red."
Chapter 15. The Art of War. The limousine idled outside Quinn's apartment building. It was a black, armored behemoth that looked more like a hearse than a party vehicle. I sat in the back, checking the time on my watch for the 10th time in 2 minutes. "Relax, boss," my driver Boris grunted from the front. "She is a woman. They take time." "She is a target," I corrected him, adjusting my cufflinks. "Every minute she is not behind reinforced glass is a minute I cannot control." I poured myself a glass of whiskey, but I didn't drink it. The amber liquid trembled slightly in the crystal tumbler, proof that my hands were not steady. I was taking a human into the heart of the pack. I was walking a lamb into a slaughterhouse and hoping the wolves would be too confused by her dress to bite. It was the most reckless thing I had ever done. Then the door to the apartment building opened. I set the glass down. Quinn Pelligrino stepped out into the evening light. She had listened. The dress was the one I chose, the deep, violent crimson silk. It flowed around her legs like liquid fire. The high neck made her look untouchable, regal. But as she turned to lock her door, the open back revealed the long, elegant curve of her spine. My mouth went dry. "Gods," I whispered. Boris whistled low. "That is not a doctor, boss. That is a weapon." I growled at him to shut up as the door opened. Quinn slid into the leather seat next to me. The scent hit me instantly. Honey, ink, and something floral. her shampoo. It filled the confined space, overpowering the smell of the leather and the whiskey. "Good evening," she said, smoothing the silk over her knees. She looked nervous. Her hands were clutching a small black clutch so hard her knuckles were white. "I feel like I'm going to prom, a very dangerous corporate prom." "You look," I struggled for the word, "mine. You look like mine. You look adequate for the occasion." Quinn rolled her eyes. "High praise as always. You look nice too." Nikolai, very severe. I was wearing a black tuxedo, tailored to hide the holster under my left arm. "Listen to me, Quinn. Tonight, there are rules. Of course there are rules. Rule 1. You do not leave my side. Ever. If you need the restroom, I will escort you to the door and wait." That seems excessive. "Rule 2, I continued, ignoring her. Do not make direct eye contact with anyone who growls. It is considered a challenge." She laughed nervously. "Growls? Nikolai, these are investors, not golden retrievers." I turned to her, grabbing her chin gently to force her to look at me. The humor died in her eyes when she saw the intensity in mine. "Rule 3, I whispered, my thumb brushing her jawline. If you feel afraid, if anyone touches you, if anyone looks at you wrong, you press the button on the key fob in your purse, and you come to me immediately." She stared at me, her hazel eyes searching mine. "Nikolai, you're scaring me. Is it really that bad?" "It is a room full of predators, Quinn," I said, letting her go, "and you are the only thing in the room that bleeds." The car slowed to a stop. We had arrived. Outside the tinted windows, I could see the flash of cameras. The paparazzi were here. But behind them, lining the red carpet, were the enforcers. Large men in dark suits scanning the crowd for threats. "Showtime, doctor," I said. The door opened. The noise of the crowd rushed in. I stepped out first, buttoning my jacket. I turned and offered my hand to her. Quinn took it. Her skin was warm against mine. As she stepped out, the flashbulbs erupted like lightning. The red dress caught the light blazing against the dark night. I heard a collective intake of breath from the crowd. Not just from the humans with cameras, but from the enforcers. They smelled her. They saw her. And then they saw my hand on the small of her back, right on her bare skin. I felt the possessiveness roar through my veins. Let them look. Let them wonder. Tonight, she was under the Volkov banner. "Chin up," I murmured into her ear. "Walk like you own the pavement." Quinn took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and smiled. It was a beautiful, terrifying smile. We walked into the lion's den.
Chapter 16. The Shark Tank. The grand ballroom of the Apex Plaza Hotel was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling. The walls were draped in velvet. A string quartet was playing something classical and ominous in the corner. But the atmosphere wasn't festive. It was heavy. The air felt thick, like right before a thunderstorm. And the smell, it was overwhelming. It smelled like a pine forest mixed with expensive cologne, musk, and raw meat. "Stay close," Nikolai murmured. His hand was a warm, heavy weight on my lower back. His fingers were resting directly on my skin, and every time his thumb moved, a little jolt of electricity shot up my spine. "So," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady, "which one of these people wants to defenestrate someone?" "All of them," Nikolai replied without moving his lips. We moved through the crowd. People parted for Nikolai like the Red Sea. Men in tuxedos bowed their heads slightly as we passed. Women in glittering gowns stopped talking and watched us with sharp, calculating eyes. I noticed something strange. No one was blinking enough. They all stared with an intensity that made me want to hide behind Nikolai's broad shoulders. "Alpha Volkov!" a voice boomed. A man blocked our path. He was older, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He held a cane topped with a polished chrome wolf head. "Elder Vance," Nikolai said. His voice dropped an octave. The hand on my back tightened. "You are late," Elder Vance said. He didn't look at Nikolai. He was looking at me. His eyes were pale yellow, unsettlingly bright. He leaned in and sniffed the air openly. "And you have brought a guest." "This is Dr. Quinn Pelligrino," Nikolai said smoothly. My executive wellness consultant. Wellness, Vance repeated. He took a step closer to me. I could smell stale tobacco and something wild on him. She smells like paper. And fear. I stiffened. Don't look weak, I told myself. Remember the red dress. You are a warning. I'm not afraid, I lied, projecting my best therapist voice. I'm just observing. Stress levels in this room are remarkably high. Have you considered breathing exercises, Mr. Vance? It might help with the intensity. Nikolai choked on a cough next to me. Elder Vance's eyes widened. For a second, he looked ready to bite me. Then, a slow, terrifying grin spread across his face. She has teeth, Vance chuckled. Good, you will need them. He stepped aside. The council is watching, Volkov. Do not disappoint us. As we walked away, I let out a shaky breath. Okay, that guy definitely bites. He is on the council, Nikolai muttered. He has eaten stronger things than you. That's comforting. Relax, Nikolai said. He guided me toward the bar. You did well. You stood your ground. I told a scary old man to do breathing exercises. Exactly. It was refreshing. I looked up at him. Nikolai was scanning the room, his jaw tight. He looked exhausted. Beneath the arrogant CEO exterior, I saw the patient I knew, the man who lined up his shoes and was afraid of being abandoned. Nikolai, I said softly, touching his arm. He flinched, then looked down at me. His eyes softened. Are you okay? I asked. I am fine, he said automatically. You're hypervigilant, I diagnosed. Your heart rate is visible in your neck vein. You need to ground yourself. Tell me 5 things you see. He stared at me. We are at a gala, Quinn, not in your office. Tell me, I insisted. 5 things. He sighed, but he obeyed. I see the exit. I see the security team. I see Zachary talking to a waiter. He paused, his gaze dropping to my face. I see your eyes. I see your mouth. My breath hitched. That was 5 things, but the last 2 felt like they carried more weight than the others. Better? I asked weakly. Marginally, he admitted. Good. Now, I need a drink. Something strong. Does this place serve anything that isn't blood? Nikolai actually smiled. A real small smile. I will get you champagne. Stay here. Do not move. Count the chandeliers if you must. He stepped away toward the bar, leaving me alone by a marble pillar. I counted the chandeliers. 1, 2, 3. Dr. Pelligrino. The voice came from behind me. It was smooth, familiar, and oozed fake charm. I turned around. Zachary Swan was standing there, holding 2 glasses of red wine. You made it, he said, offering me a glass. And in red, how bold. I didn't take the glass. I put my hand in my pocket, wrapping my fingers around the silver wolf fob. Mr. Swan, I said coolly, I see you survived the parking lot. Your car is very spirited, Zachary smiled, but his eyes were cold. But we are not in a parking lot now, Doctor, and Nikolai is not here to hold your hand. He took a step closer, invading my personal space. Look around you, he whispered. Do you see anyone else like you? Anyone else with soft skin and a slow heartbeat? You are surrounded by monsters, Quinn, and the king cannot watch everyone at once.
Chapter 17. The Dance of Dominance. I was at the bar, waiting for the bartender to pour the champagne when I heard it. It wasn't a sound, it was a spike in the room's energy. A shift in the air pressure that pricked the hairs on my arms. I spun around. Across the room, Zachary was standing next to Quinn. He was too close. He was leaning in, whispering something into her ear. Quinn looked rigid, her hand buried in her clutch. Rage, white-hot and blinding, exploded in my chest. I didn't walk, I stalked. I crossed the ballroom floor in seconds, ignoring the startled gasps of the guests I shoved aside. As I got closer, I saw Zachary reach out. He was going to touch her arm. "Zachary!" I roared. The music stopped. The conversation died. Every head in the room turned. Zachary froze, his hand inches from Quinn's elbow. He looked at me, his eyes wide. He saw the murder in my face. "Alpha!" Zachary stammered, backing away. "I was just—" "You are leaving," I snarled. "Now!" It wasn't a request, it was an alpha command. The sheer force of it hit him like a physical blow. Zachary flinched, bowed his head in submission, and scurried away into the crowd like the rat he was. I stood there, breathing hard. The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone was watching. The council, the elders, the rivals. They were waiting to see what the king would do. I looked at Quinn. She was pale, but she wasn't cowering. She looked furious. "I had that handled," she hissed at me. "I was about to use the panic button." "I am the panic button," I said. The string quartet, sensing the tension, nervously started playing a waltz. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just stand there and yell. That looked like loss of control. I needed to turn this into a display of power. I held out my hand to her. "Dance with me," I commanded. Quinn hesitated. "Nikolai, everyone is staring." "Let them stare," I said. "Let them see." She took my hand. I pulled her onto the empty dance floor. I placed one hand on her waist and the other on her back, my palm burning against her bare skin. We began to move. It wasn't a gentle waltz. It was a prowl set to music. I held her close, pressing her body against mine. I needed to feel her heartbeat. I needed to smell her scent over the stench of Zachary's fear. "You are making a scene," Quinn whispered, though she followed my lead perfectly. "I am making a statement," I corrected. "And what statement is that?" I spun her around, dipping her low so her hair cascaded down toward the floor. I leaned over her, my face inches from her throat. I could hear the rapid thump, thump, thump of her heart. "That you are under my protection," I growled, low enough for only her to hear. "That anyone who touches you loses a hand." I pulled her back up, chest to chest. Her eyes were dilated, dark with adrenaline. "That sounds like possessiveness, Nikolai," she challenged breathlessly. "Not therapy." "Maybe I am done with therapy for the night," I admitted. I pulled her closer, breaking every rule of propriety. My thigh brushed against hers. The heat between us was undeniable. It wasn't just the bond, it was her fire, her stubbornness. "Nikolai," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your eyes, they're glowing." I didn't care. Let them glow. "Let them see," I said again, staring at the council members watching from the balcony. I tightened my grip on her. For the first time, I didn't care about the consequences. I didn't care about the masquerade. I was the Alpha King, and I was dancing with my mate.
Chapter 18. The Bioluminescent Billionaire. The music ended, but Nikolai didn't let go. For a long heartbeat, we just stood there in the center of the ballroom. His chest was heaving against mine, hard and rhythmic. His eyes, those terrifying, mesmerizing gray eyes, were still rimmed with an unnatural electric silver light. Around us, the room was dead silent. I could feel the weight of 300 pairs of eyes pressing against my skin. "Nikolai," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You're glowing." He blinked. He seemed to come back to himself slowly, like a diver surfacing from deep water. The silver light faded, leaving behind the dark, stormy gray I was used to. "Come," he said roughly. He didn't wait for the applause, there wasn't any, or for the crowd to disperse. He grabbed my hand and pulled me off the dance floor, marching us toward the French doors that led to the terrace. The night air was crisp and cold, a shock after the stifling heat of the ballroom. Nikolai didn't stop until we were at the far end of the stone balcony, hidden in the shadows of a large potted cypress tree. He let go of my hand and gripped the stone railing, his knuckles white. He took a deep breath, then another, as if trying to suck all the oxygen out of the atmosphere. "You should be running," he said, his back to me. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering slightly in the open-backed dress. "Running? Why? Because you yelled at Zachary? Honestly, someone should have done that weeks ago." "Because of what you saw," Nikolai growled. He turned around slowly. "Do not lie to me, Quinn. You saw my eyes." I hesitated. I could play dumb. I could say it was a trick of the chandelier light. But after the bent car roof, the command voice, and the way every person in that room looked at him like he was a god, I was done lying to myself. I saw them, I admitted quietly. They were bright, like high beams. And you are not afraid? I didn't say that. I stepped closer to him, drawn by a gravity I couldn't explain. I said I'm not running. There's a difference. Nikolai looked at me with an expression of pure torture. I lost control. Zachary, he provoked the beast. If I had stayed in that room another second, I would not have just yelled. I would have torn his throat out. Metaphorically? I asked, though I knew the answer. He didn't answer. He just looked at my throat. You are dangerous, I whispered. Yes. And you have anger management issues. Clearly. But I reached out, my fingers hovering over the lapel of his tuxedo. You didn't hurt me. You grabbed me. You danced with me. You terrified a room full of people for me. But you didn't hurt me. Nikolai closed his eyes. He leaned his forehead down until it rested against mine. He was radiating heat like a furnace. I could never hurt you, he murmured, his voice sounding broken. That is the problem, Quinn. I would burn the world down to keep a scratch off your skin, and that makes me weak. It makes you human, I said softly. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. If only you knew. For a moment, standing there in the moonlight, I thought he was going to kiss me. His breath ghosted over my lips. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Then the French doors opened. Alpha Volkov! We sprang apart. Elder Vance stood in the doorway, leaning on his wolf-head cane. His yellow eyes darted between us, calculating. The council requires a moment, Vance croaked. Alone.
Chapter 19. The Separation. The timing could not have been worse. My wolf was just settling down, soothed by Quinn's scent and her unbelievable acceptance of my slip-up. She hadn't run. She hadn't screamed. She had stepped closer. And now, Vance was here to ruin it. Not now, Vance, I said, shielding Quinn with my body. I am occupied. It is not a request, Nikolai, Vance said, his voice dropping to a low rumble. The elders are displeased with your display on the dance floor. Intimidation of a beta is one thing. Publicly claiming a human is another. We need to discuss the implications immediately. I clenched my jaw. If I refused, it would be seen as an act of rebellion. The council could strip me of my status, my company, and my ability to protect Quinn. I turned to her. She looked small in the moonlight, hugging her arms against the cold. I have to take this, I told her, hating the words. Go, she said, giving me a brave smile. I'll be fine. I'll just count the chandeliers again. No, I scanned the terrace. It was empty. Go back inside. Stay by the bar. Boris is at the main entrance. I will signal him to watch you. Do not leave the ballroom. Do not talk to Zachary. Zachary ran away, remember? She reminded me. You scared the life out of him. Desperate men do desperate things, I warned. 2 minutes, Quinn. Stay in sight. I took off my tuxedo jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It engulfed her, smelling of my cologne and the expensive cigars I never smoked. Armor, I whispered. She pulled the lapels tight. 2 minutes. I turned and followed Vance back into the hotel, but instead of the ballroom, he led me toward a private meeting room down the hallway. As soon as the heavy oak doors closed behind us, the air in the room changed. 3 other elders were sitting at a long table. They didn't look happy. Sit, Volkov, Elder Martha said sharply. I will stand, I replied, crossing my arms. Make this fast. My date is waiting. Your date is a liability, Vance spat, thumping his cane on the floor. You smelled of her scent when you walked in. You are mated to a human, Nikolai. Do not insult our intelligence. She is my wellness consultant, I lied, though the growl in my voice betrayed me. She is a weakness. Martha slammed her hand on the table. Zachary Swan has filed a formal complaint. He claims you are mentally unstable, that you are compromised by this woman. He is petitioning for a challenge. I laughed. Zachary? Challenge me? He is a beta. He would die in 10 seconds. Not a physical challenge, you arrogant pup, Vance hissed. A corporate one. A vote of no confidence. He wants to take Apex Dynamics. And if he proves you are breaking the masquerade laws by courting a human, the council will back him. My blood ran cold. Zachary wasn't just jealous, he was staging a coup. Where is Zachary? I demanded, looking around the room. If he has a complaint, let him say it to my face. The elders looked at each other. He is not here, Vance said slowly. He excused himself 10 minutes ago. He said he had unfinished business to attend to. Unfinished business. My heart stopped. I didn't say another word. I didn't wait to be dismissed. I turned and sprinted for the door, tearing it off its hinges in my panic. I had left her alone.
Chapter 20. The Service Elevator. Nikolai's jacket was warm, and it smelled incredible, but it didn't stop the feeling that I was being watched. I stood by the bar, nursing a glass of water. Nikolai had been gone for 5 minutes. Dr. Pelligrino? I jumped. A waiter was standing next to me, holding a silver tray. He looked terrified. Yes? Mr. Volkov sent me, the waiter stammered. He asks that you meet him in the coat check room. He said there is a security issue at the main entrance, and he needs to leave via the side exit. I frowned. Why didn't he call me? He said phones are not secure, ma'am. It sounded plausible. Nikolai was paranoid enough to think phones were compromised, and he had been acting strange all night. Okay, I said, setting down my glass. Lead the way. The waiter led me away from the ballroom, down a long corridor lined with velvet ropes. The noise of the party faded behind us. The coat check is this far back? I asked, my hand instinctively going to my clutch. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the key fob. Just through here, ma'am. The waiter pointed to a set of double doors marked Authorized Personnel Only. He opened the door for me, but he didn't follow me in. As soon as I stepped across the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. I heard the lock click. Hello? I called out. I was in a service hallway. Concrete floors, fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial cleaner. And at the end of the hall, standing in front of an open freight elevator, was Zachary Swan. He looked terrible. His tie was crooked, his hair was messy, and he was sweating. He wasn't holding a weapon. His hands were twitching at his sides. You really are a naive little thing, Zachary said, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Zachary, I said, keeping my voice calm, my therapist voice. This is a bad idea. Nikolai is looking for me. Nikolai is busy getting chewed out by the council, Zachary sneered. He took a step toward me. He won't be here in time. By the time he finds you, you'll just be a tragic accident, a mugging gone wrong in the parking garage. You want to kill me? I asked, stepping back. Why? Because I'm dating him? Because you ruin everything, Zachary roared. The sound wasn't human. It was a distorted, guttural bark that vibrated in his chest. His eyes flashed a sickly, unnatural yellow. He was supposed to fail, but you made him strong. He lunged. He didn't reach for a weapon. He became one. His fingers curled, and I watched in horror as his fingernails elongated into jagged, bone-white claws right before my eyes. I didn't scream. I ran. I bolted toward the open freight elevator behind him. I shoved him. He felt like hitting a brick wall, but he stumbled just enough. I threw myself into the elevator and smashed my fist onto the close door button. Zachary slammed into the closing doors. He didn't use a crowbar. He dug his claws directly into the steel. The metal shrieked and tore like wet cardboard. He ripped the doors apart with supernatural strength, his face contorted into a half-shifted muzzle of rage. "Open it!" he screamed, squeezing his shoulder through the gap. I backed into the corner. My hand shook as I pointed the key fob at the gap in the doors. "Hey, Zachary!" I yelled. "Fetch!" I held down the trunk release button. Now, stay tuned for part 2.